So this is part 2 of the Book of Magic, right? This here was the storyline. That book transports you to this magical land here. A whole set of crazy scenarios are going to develop, and you have to make some choices as we go along. All right, so this is where we, well, before we move to our first choice, right? Let's get through this question here. It's a circular geometry question. Once again, I told the class yesterday that I'm not going to tell you which year it is. That's to prevent people from going on YouTube and getting the answers. Okay, get started and send your answers on the chat. Also, for these types of questions, for the exam, right? For the exam itself, you're not only supposed to send in numerical values, you're supposed to send an explanation for the answer. But for today's communication, just send the value. You don't have to send the actual explanation because that's going to take too long to type up. Good luck, and I await your 3 answers. The first angle, right, is BOE. So you have to trace the 3 letters, right? BOE. It's always the middle letter. So if you trace those 3 letters, what we're trying to find is this angle over here, right? So that's the angle they want us to find. Now, if you look at it, right, they said O is the center. So that means EO is a radius and O to B is another radius. 2 radii must have the same length. So anybody knows the fancy name for that triangle? Well, what do you call a triangle where 2 sides have the same length? Starts with the letter I, and you all knew it from since primary school. That's an isosceles triangle, which means if here's 20, then over here is what? Also 20. I write it kind of small here, right? But that would also be 20, okay? Now, we want to find this angle. Of course, we know all the angles in a triangle add up to how much? 180, all right? So you're adding 20 plus 20, that's 40, and you minus it from 180, and then you're going to get what? 140, right? So this angle here would be 140 degrees, okay? So for those who got that one wrong, right? You all understand your mistake. So BOE is 140 degrees. Great. Now, when you're writing your answer, right? To be honest, you can write it like this in the exam, right? You have to put some statements. You could say angle BOE. You can write it like this or put a little hat here. You could just say it's 180 minus 20 plus 20. But write a little statement for the examiner. You have to tell him, you should tell him something like EOB, that the triangle EOB is an isosceles. So you'll get an idea of your thinking process, right? I'm not saying that to write this super big paragraph, but you must at least put a little explanation for the examiner to get full marks, okay? So be careful about that in the exam, right? So make sure I'm putting a little explanation. For part 2, OED. O, E, and D. That's this angle here that we're trying to find, right? So I'll put a little question mark there. Anybody wants to take a quick shot knowing that here is 140? Well, what do you think OED is? Take a shot at that. Right. I'm going to clear up this little clutter here, right? Make it look a little more presentable. One person said 280. Well, how about I give you a little hint? But for those who have the notes on, well, my notes on circular theorem, do you all remember rule number 7? Oh, let me refresh your memory. We have a circle, all right? This blue line here is what you call a chord. I think we all know that. Now, this one's going to be hard to see because there are so many lines. Anybody could tell me what's the name of this pink line that I'm about to draw? Remember, the chord touches the circumference here. What's the name of that pink line that grazes the circumference of the circle? And you notice it's grazing where the chord is touching the circle. Great, and you all have the answer. It's called a tangent. I think everyone could agree there must be an angle between the tangent and the chord, right? If you use your protractor, you will definitely get an angle. In maths, if I take a line, if I draw a line from where the chord is touching the tangent, and I make that line hit the circumference and let it bounce back to the end of the chord, but it must touch the circumference. Everyone agrees that this angle, that there must be an angle here. The angle between the tangent and the chord, this will always be equal to the green angle. That's the angle standing on the chord. So if here is 40 degrees, over here would also be 40. That's rule number 7. You check back in the notes. I guarantee it's there. I know some of y'all are having problems seeing this in this. Well, let me show you it. BD, isn't that the chord? Isn't the chord touching the circumference here? So BC is your tangent. There's an angle between the tangent and the chord. It's 42 degrees. Now, from B, it goes to E. That's where it hits the circumference and it bounces back. Shouldn't this entire angle also be 42 degrees? Think about it, right? If this entire angle is 42 degrees from using this rule, if here's 20, how much again do we need to make the 42? 20 plus what will give us 42? You just subtract it, right? 42 minus 20. So the answer is obviously going to be 22 degrees. Now, in the exam, you're going to have to quote back rule number 7 for the examiner. And then you're going to have to show him that you take 42 and minus 20. And I guarantee if you do that, you're going to walk away with all the marks in your exam. Okay? Great. BFE, right? I actually like these questions, right? I think most of you all like these questions as well, right? BFE, let's look for this one. BFE. All right, so that's this angle here. Now remember, we had figured out that this angle here was 140, right? By the O, remember that was 140. Let's see how we can get that angle, right? And let me see if I can fool you all a little bit here, right? I want you all to look back at rule number 4. Go back to your notes in circular theorem. For those who don't have the notes, I'm going to draw a circle. What do you all call a 4-sided figure that fits inside the circle, but, I can't hear with the butter, all the corners are touching the circumference? If you look at this pink shape, all the corners of the 4-sided figure is touching the circumference. And that's going to be super important. That's a cyclic quadrilateral. I'm going to write it out, right? I know some of you may not have your books with you. That's called your cyclic quadrilateral. The rule says the opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral add up to 180. So if here is 100, here would be 80. The opposite angles must add up to 180. 80. So I just saying, if here was 110, the opposite angle would have to be 70. All right. Remember, here is how much? 140. I put in a black dot by it. Isn't this a cyclic quadrilateral? Look at it. E to O, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. So if here is 140, how much should here be? Because this is a cyclic quadrilateral. Look at it, it's 4 sides. So if here is 140, that's this answer. How much is this one here? Opposite angles is 1. I thought that I catch you all. I just tried. Right, guys, you all figured out what stupidness I'm talking. Great. I'm glad I was called out. A lot of people would have fell for that trick. You see, for it to be a cyclic quadrilateral, all 4 corners must touch the circumference. He touching the circumference, he touching, but it's O touching. No, that one is not touching. It resembles a cyclic quadrilateral, but I guarantee you it is not. So, you know which one is a cyclic quadrilateral? From F to E to D to B. That is a cyclic quadrilateral. So we need to find this angle. If we find this angle, I guarantee you we can find this angle. Look at rule number 2. Look at rule number 2, right? I have to erase a few things here, right, to make some space. If you look back at rule number 2 in your notes, right? I know we did this a long time ago. It's a little rusty. Rule number 2 says if you have piece of a circumference is called an arc. If you have an angle starting at the beginning of the arc, hitting the circumference and bouncing back, there will be an angle here. There must be an angle. And if you have a line starting at the arc again, but it hits the center instead and bounces back, you will have an angle here. The one at the center does always be twice the size of the one touching the circumference. So if here was 20, the one at the center there will be 40. The one at the center does always be larger. And we have that scenario here. Look at it. From E to B is the arc. We have an angle starting at E, hitting the center and bouncing back to B. This angle is 140, the center one. But then we have one starting at E, hitting the circumference and bouncing back. So how much is this angle here? Where the pencil is? That one would be 70. Half of the center. Remember, the center will always be twice as large. So I just took the 140 and divided it by 2. Now we could use the cyclic quadrilateral. The 70 and this angle are supposed to add up to how much? 180. So if here is 70, how much is this guy here? 110, correct. Right? So I hope that makes some more sense. For those who have exams, right, make sure you go on the website before, a couple of days before the exam, and run through those rules again, or go through your notes, right? All right, so let's move on to the next question. Let's see what's going on here. Rohan, would I get that wrong? Even if you're off by 1 degree. All right, so I personally love Behrens questions. I don't think you all do, but good luck. Right. This is going to be a long question. I think it has 3 parts to part B. All right, so the diagram is pretty straightforward. We can see all the measurements on it. They want to know the bearing of P from Q. From that sentence, where are we standing? At point P or point Q? At point Q. So we are standing at point Q, right? You just know, right? It's always after the word from. So the bearing of P from Q. So you're standing at Q and you want to turn to face which direction? P. That is what they want to know, right? They want to know the value of that entire angle. Right? Anybody wants to take a different guess? Because they gave us some more information. Huh? R is 100 kilometers from Q on a bearing of 66. They did not put in this piece of information here, right? So that means if you're standing at Q and bearings is always measured from north, if you want to turn in a clockwise direction in order to face R, that angle would be 66 degrees. So how much is the total blue angle, right? I think some people forgot something. Huh? Bearings are always measured from north in a clockwise direction. And I think the examiner intentionally left this information off the diagram. Because if he had put that, it would have been too easy, right? So how much is the total angle? 66 plus 54. And I'm getting 120 degrees. All right, it's just 66 plus the 54 to get the entire angle. All right. Right, great. So that's out of the way. I believe this was only one marker. So let's move on to the next part here. Right, so keep this in the back of your head. I realize some of you all are forgetting, like exams coming up and you get a little nervous, right? Bearings is always measured from north. You have to pretend you're facing north and you turn clockwise, always. Great. So now they want the distance PR. And look at the instructions, the 2 decimal places, PR. Well, you all should be very, very familiar with this question. Let me just ask off the top of ask the class one time. Whenever you notice you have the length of 2 sides and the angle in between those 2 sides. Which rule is that? The sine rule or the cosine rule? I'm talking about the hard versions. Isaiah Lewis, wrong. That's the cosine rule. Remember, 2 sides and the angle in between, that's automatically. Just run to the cosine rule for non-right angle triangles. It also works for right angle triangles. All right, so I just want to help you all a little bit. Remember, when you have your triangles, the capital letters represent the angles, the common letters represent the sides. So if here's capital Q, over here's common Q. If here's capital P, over here's common P. Over here's capital R, over here's common R. You are trying to find common Q. Develop your cosine rule formula to find common Q and solve for it. Okay, let's go. So we're trying to find common Q, right? Because that's PR. PR is common Q. So you put Q squared, and the other 2 sides are P and R. So you say R squared plus P squared. Everything has common letters minus open brackets 2. By R by P, there's only one capital letter here, common Q. If you have common Q here, the last letter is the capital version of it. So all you have to do now is substitute in your values, right? Let's put it in here, correct. 80 squared plus 100 squared minus open brackets 2 by 80 by 100 by cosine. What's the angle Q is 54. That would be the angle in between the 2 sides. Now, to be honest, you can just type in this straight on your calculator, right? Let me just double check this. When I type in this, I'm getting roughly 6995.436. Now, remember, if I am working to 2 decimal places, if my final answer needs to be to 2 decimal places, I must do my work into 1 more decimal place. In other words, 3 decimal places. And only when I get my final answer, then you round off to 2. The examiner will be looking for that. So how much people could agree this is what they saw? Now, if this is what you plan to square root, this is what you have to write on your paper. Huh? So when you throw across the squared, because you're trying to solve for q, you're going to get a square root. And when you square root that, that's now, again, 6995.436. I'm getting to 2 decimal places, 83.64. Because let me explain something. And I know some people might say, but that's a real small error, right? You get 6387 or something like that. But the examiner wants you to round off to 2 decimal places. So it's 83.64. Believe me, the examiner will be looking, when the examiner, the person who's correcting your script, they look for little details like that. So if you have a 3 here, it's wrong. Well, not wrong, you will lose a mark. I guarantee you. Right? And a lot of people put 83.63, which means it did not round off properly. Right, for those who got it wrong, you saw your mistake. Right, Amanda, you fixed it, great. What about Celeste? I think Celeste, you had it wrong too. Let me know if you fixed it. All right, right. And for those who not submitting answers, please get involved in class. Okay, get involved, get involved. I'm gonna start calling names in a little while. Get involved. All right, so let's move on. Right. All right, so here's the next question. Now, remember, we just got this length to be how much? 83.64. So I should update my diagram just in case I need it, right? They want the measurement of QPR. QPR, where is that? QPR. That's this guy here. Follow question mark. There are 2 ways to get out this question, right? You could use the hard sine rule, or you could actually use the hard cosine rule. But we have so much information, you could use any one. Let's vote. Which one you all want to use? Cosine rule or the sine rule? Let's do a little vote here, because I'm not going to work it out both ways. Right, so the class is just shouting sine rule. Great. So we're going to use the sine rule to get it out. I have a good feeling you all don't like that cosine rule. All right, remember, oh, sorry. Sorry, guys, just now. 1 second. Here's common Q, here's common P, and here's common R. Which letter do you all plan to throw away? Who is the one you need to throw away in this question? Amanda, correct, right? Anastasia, Christian, Nadia, right? Nirvana, right? Tyrell, great, it's R, right? Because R is totally useless in this question because you have common Q and you have capital Q. So that's plenty information. And you have to keep the P's because you're trying to find capital P. R, you have common R, but you don't even have capital R. So R kind of incomplete in the information, and they don't even want you to find it. So throw it away. All right, so let's see who is right here. Only a couple of people could be right here. So we said we throwing away the R's, so we keeping the Q's and the P's. So it'll be common Q, we keep the common letters on top, divided by sine Q is equal to P divided by sine capital P. Common letters go on top, common letters represent sides, capital letters represent angles, and they go underneath. So let's substitute in what we have. Common Q, I'm using the 83.64. Sine capital Q, how much is capital Q? 54. Common P is 100, and we're trying to find capital P. Now, there are 2 ways we could go about this question, and I believe I showed you all sometime last year. We could actually cross multiply, start cross multiplying now, or we could find sine 54, round it off to 3 decimal places, and then cross multiply. Either way, you're going to get the same amount of marks in the exam. So I'm just going to do this where I find sine 54 and round it off to 3 decimal places and then cross multiply. Sine 54. I am getting to 3 decimal places. I just have to erase it here. Sine 54, when I type in that on my calculator, I'm getting 0.809. And everyone good with me so far? Like you're physically seeing 0.809 on your calculator. Great. Let's cross multiply. Doesn't matter which diagonal first. Let's do this one. So 83.64 multiplied by sine p. And if we multiply this diagonal, luckily I could do that in my head, right? Throw across the multiply, you're going to get what? A divide. Divide this, round it off to 3 decimal places, and then sine inverse it. Let's see what I get. 80.9 divided by 83.64. I'm getting 0.967. Throw across sine, you'll get what? Sine inverse. And let's see what my final answer is. Second function, sine 0.967. I'm getting 75.24 to 2 decimal places, right? But it's set to the nearest degree. So that means my final answer is 75 degrees. All right. So you see all the steps, guys, don't, I guess it was chinks. So don't chinks on the steps. Write down every single step for that examiner, right? Right. Examiners, people who correct your scripts are people too. They have good days, they have bad days, right? Make sure you always keep them happy. All right, no problem, Rochford. Right. Right, Nadia. Yeah, but Nadia, you just have to sign inverse that answer and you finish there, right? All right, so people are telling me the mistakes they made. They're figuring out what they did wrong. All right, guys, get that scrap piece of paper ready. Those who had their papers from yesterday, I hope you have a high score. For those who joined today, remember, I asked you to write a 10 on it. You're going to have to make a choice now, right? Let's move on to the next slide. All right, so apparently you end up by this house here, right? It's late in the night, right? The moon has just risen, you're tired, you see a house. Right? Who is the correct owner of the house? Choose, is it the mouse, the panda bear, or the lion? Only if you choose the correct one. Send it on the chat. You cannot change your answer, right? Go with it. Lion is a pretty, lion lives in the house. All right. What? Nobody choose any panda? Oh, Denisha, you choose the panda. Celine, you chose the panda. All right, so let's see who is right and who is wrong. Get ready to update your scores. The mouse was the true owner. So for those who chose the mouse, add 3 to your score. For those who chose the panda, sorry, -2 from your score, and the lion, -1 from your score. Right, Rohan, if you were not here yesterday, you started with 10. Other than that, you're using yesterday's score, but today's a continuation. All right, so if you choose the lion, that's still not the worst choice. All right, guys, let's move on. We'll have some more choices later on to make. All right, so here we have, well, transformations, okay? There are actually 2 ways to do part 1. You could use matrices, or you could use the drawing method, right? I think they tell you to draw it, right? So you have to draw it. Good luck. and I await your answers. For part one, they said it's an enlargement where the center is O. Now it's an enlargement by 2. So all you really have to do is from the center of enlargement, which is the origin, you would draw a line to one, from there to one corner of the triangle. And then you extend it by 1 more times the length. So they're saying if this distance was 3 centimeters, you extend it by another 3 centimeters. But you have to use your ruler to do that. Then you do the same thing for the other points or the other corners. You take your ruler, you join it from the center to that point, and whatever this length is, you extend it 1 more time on the diagram, right? So you're supposed to get, it will end up somewhere here if you extend it. From O to C, that length, make it 1 more time longer. The reason they call it a factor of 2, the first line counts as 1 and the extension counts as another 1. So the total factor is 2. Now, if you do that, you realize when you connect all these points here, your triangle will look twice as large. Here will be A prime, here will be B prime, and here will be what? C prime. This point here is 2, 4. This point here is 8, 4. This point here is 2, 0. How much of y'all had that but did not send it on the chat? Right? And there's another way you could do this. Huh? You could use the enlargement matrix. Remember this one, K, 0, 0, K? This is the enlargement matrix. If it's an enlargement of 2, you replace the letter K with what? 2. And you just simply multiply all the points in the original triangle by 2, 0, 0, 2. And I guarantee you, you will get the same answers that I have here, right? The next part is giving a lot of problems, right? I'll need to erase everything on the screen here. So whoever needs to take a screenshot can do so. Right. Oh, so people are letting me know their mistakes and whatnot. Right, so I'm going to clear everything from the screen. I think a lot of people are having problems with this sentence here. Describe completely the transformation M. So what they're asking us, well, what they're telling us, right? We're starting off with this triangle, and then it moves to this position. And they want us to describe that. You'll notice it slide to a different position. Now, when I say slide, a slide is something that just changes position, but the orientation remains the same. What's the mathematical name for a slide in maths? You notice the size of the triangle did not change. It didn't point another direction. It just slid to a different place. That's a translation. So M is a translation. That's the fancy word for a slide. But we're not finished there. That's just piece of the description. They want to know the value of the slide. You'll notice it. Let me write this. Draw it out. It slide how much horizontally? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it slide horizontally to the right. 4 blocks, and then it went down how much values? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it slide downwards. When you're writing a translation, you just have to write it like this. It does have 2 numbers. The top number is the horizontal movement. The underneath number is the vertical movement. If you move, when you're moving horizontally, if you move to the right, it is positive. If you move to the left, it is negative. For vertical movements, obviously, if you move up, it's positive. If you move down, it's negative. So we move 4 places to the right, So it's +4. And then we move 5 places down. So it's -5. You have to write both of these things to get full marks, right? That's your description. You said it is a translation, and then you give the value of the translation. Okay? Right, so for the majority of the class who got it wrong, you all understand it now? I think if that comes for exam, you're gonna get it correct. Another trigonometry question, right? This looks a little bit easier. It seems to only be dealing, it has a right angle in it. I always like right angle questions. That means it's going to be normal, sine, tan, or cosine, or something like Pythagoras theorem. Good luck. They said the angle of elevation of T from P. Now, T is up here, and it's from P. So that means we're standing at P, right? Well, what is an angle of elevation? Isn't that when you stand at a certain point, you face horizontal and then tilt your head upwards till you face the particular point? So how much is the answer? Not 50. I think you all thought you had to do something. The answer is on the screen. The answer is 40 degrees because you're standing at P and you're tilting your head upwards. How much degrees? 40. All right. So I think it's just a case that you overthink the question and you couldn't believe that the question was so easy. All right, so the answer was 40 degrees. The examiner was just testing to see if you knew what an angle of elevation was. That's it. Okay, so continue, right? Take a couple of minutes again. Okay, for FP, which one are you all using, right? Are you using sine, tan, or cosine to find FP? I think it's tan, right? And a lot of people are telling me tan, but let's just make sure. They give us the 40 degrees, and obviously the smaller triangle is a right angle triangle. So if here's 40 and it's standing here, isn't this the opposite side? So I put OPP. And isn't this question mark the adjacent side? So the formula for tan is opposite over adjacent. I think some people using sine by mistake. Tan theta is opposite divided by adjacent, and FP is the adjacent. So how do you find the adjacent side? It's opposite divided by tan. So this is how I want you to write it in the exam, right? You're trying to find the adjacent side. The name of the adjacent side is FP, right? Write it like that. And you have to take the length of the opposite side. The length of the obviously you have your formula here on the side, because before you use a formula, you have to write the formula, right? The opposite side is what? TF, and it's sine, sorry, I say in sine. It's tan, and how much is the angle we're standing up in? You could call that angle P, right? And then you could what, substitute in the values, just in case now. 80, that's the length of the opposite side, and then tan what? 40. Right? Did your teacher in school tell you that you cannot use more than one equal sign per line? Already supposed to go down here like this and put 80 over tan 40. How much of you all your teachers told you that you can't use more than one equal sign per line? All right. I don't think it's, you could, it's mathematically correct, but I think it's considered bad manners or something like that. There you go. Some bad mathematical manners. All right. So anyway, I'm running out of space underneath here, so I'm just going to write it there. 80 divided by tan 40. I could type that in straight on my calculator, and I'm getting 95.34. Very few people got this answer, guys. So I think I'm going to require a lot of feedback from a lot of the students who submitted answers. Could you let me know what mistake you made, please? It helps me out when I know the kind of mistakes you're making. Right, so one person said they use sine by mistake, right? It's tan is opposite over adjacent. All right. Right. So the next question, I'm gonna just help you out here. You want the angle of elevation of T from Q. So they're asking you for this angle here, this pink angle with the dot. That is what they're asking you to find. Right. So CJ, you did something else. Well, I can't tell you nothing. You get the answer correct. So someone said they multiplied instead of divided it. Right. Remember, when you plan to use a formula, write the formula next to you. It does two things. First of all, the examiner is going to appreciate that. Two, you're less likely to make a mistake when you have the formula written in front of you. Right. Celine, they ask us for the angle of elevation. So you're trying to find an angle for part 3. Okay. They want to know the size of this angle here. So let me update my diagram here, right? Remember, the value of FP is how much? 95.34. Right? Now, my advice is, you see this triangle here, the non-right angle triangle, do yourself a favor. Draw that separately so you can concentrate on that by itself. Right? Because this triangle here is a non-right angle triangle. So I have a good feeling you're going to end up using either the sine rule, the hard sine rule, or the hard cosine rule. Right? Good luck, and don't be shy about sending your answers. Let's get some angles going. There's plenty hidden information in this question. Huh? You'll remember a straight line is 180 degrees. So isn't this a straight line here? So if here's 40, how much is the balance? Let's get that out of the way first. That's a hidden piece of information that could be useful. A straight line is 180. This section is 40. How much is the balance? 140. So I know here is 140 now. Couldn't we easily find the length of this line? Look at it. Couldn't we use Pythagoras theorem, because this is our right angle triangle here? Isn't this the hypotenuse? So we can more than find the length of that line. So to find TP, we could just say 80 squared plus 95.34 squared, and we square root our answer. That's Pythagoras theorem. So could you all quickly send me the length of this line? Because the more information we have about this triangle, well, the easier our life is going to be. Right, I'm just thinking through, I'm just making sure there's an easier way, if there's an easier way to do this question. We should just look at the big triangle. Let's forget this line in the middle. Because I now realize there's only 3 marks, and what I'm doing there is going to be worth about 6 or 7 marks. If we take it as one big triangle, we know here's 80, but what's this distance from here to here? Couldn't we just add the 95.34 and the 118? Won't that give us the total distance? I'm now seeing that. I'm doing it the wrong way. 95.34 plus 118. Anybody could agree that here is how much? 213.34. And they're asking us for this angle. And this is a right angle triangle. Couldn't we use tan again? Because here's the opposite from the angle we're trying to find. This is the opposite, and this is the adjacent. Tan is what? Opposite divided by adjacent. So tan theta is the opposite side, which is 80, and you're divided by what? The adjacent side. Divide these two things and tan inverse your answer. Send the answer on the chat, right? Once again, apologies. I'm getting roughly right. A lot of people, remember, you have to, when you divide it, you will get a decimal. You have to tan inverse that decimal, but I made sure and rounded off my decimal to 3 decimal places. And I'm getting 20.56 roughly degrees. Try your best to go to 2 degrees unless they told us not to. Now, well, whenever they don't specify an amount of decimal places, let your final answer be the 2 decimal places. All right, so let's get ready to move on, right? If you did it the long way, fine, you're going to get the same answer, but you will have wasted a lot of time in the exam, right? I was going to find that missing length and use the hard cosine rule and then the hard sine rule afterwards. All right, so screenshot what you need to screenshot, and we are moving on. I hope the next part is, I hope this is the end of the question. All right, so we have our next cutscene, so get that piece of paper ready. All right, so you all, after resting in the house with the mouse, with rhymes for some strange reason, right? Remember, you're trying to find a way back home. So your journey and you see this little castle and it have this wizard here. If we can guess his name, he might tell us how to reach home. What do you think his correct name is? Right, you have 3 choices here. Is it Tupac Shazam, Don Wizzle, or Snoop Wabbit? Which one is it? Right, whatever you choose, you have to stick with it. The most popular answer is Don Wizzle. All right, let's see what his correct name is. His correct name was Snoop Rabbit or Wabbit. All right, so for those who choose Tupac Shazam, -1. Those who choose Don Wizzle, -2. All right. Yeah, he does look like a Snoop Wabbit. Look at that. All right. So update your scores and let's move on, guys. Let's move on. Good luck. What to do? I realized that they gave you the equation of the graph, right? The equation of the graph is y is equal to x squared. So all the points on the graph are supposed to satisfy the equation. So let's look at point N here. The point N is how much? X, 9. The x coordinate is x and the y coordinate is 9. So all they want us to do is go to the equation. Remember, this is y. Replace the y with what? 9 and put it equal to x squared. And we are trying to figure out the value of x. So we're trying to transpose to find x. Throw across the squared, you're going to get a square root. So x is going to be equal to 3. And it's the same thing for the other point, m. Let me write back m here. M is how much? -1y. So this is our x coordinate and this is our y coordinate. So go to the equation. We're trying to find y and they gave us the value of x, -1 squared. -1 squared is 1. Right? So all points on a curve are supposed to satisfy the equation of the curve. Right? So for those who were lost, I hope you understand it now. Right? Just give you a few seconds to screenshot if you need to, right? But the class is being fully recorded, so you can always get back to recording on the school website, right? Or on you, well, obviously on YouTube, right? All right, no. One point, if you looked at the graph and you reason out the answer, like you reason out here, let me see here. Like for this one here, we're supposed to get y as 1, right? If you use the graph to estimate the values, you're going to get it wrong. Eh? I'm telling you, that's 0 marks in the exam there. They wanted you to use the equation, right? I'm real sure about that. All right. So let's move on to the next part. Right. So we have the values of m and n. Let me just write it over here. Kind of small here. -1, 1, and n is how much? 3, 9. Using that information, you all should have no problems with part 1, 2, and 3. All right, so let's work out the gradient. All right, so to find the gradient, we have, well, 2 points here, right? M and n. To find the gradient, we just need 2 points. So this is, the first point is x1, the next one is y1, next one is x2 and y2. Right. So to find the gradient, well, we all know the formula by now. Y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. 9 minus 1, y2 divided, oh, this is where some people were making a mistake. X2, remember the formula has a minus sign, but x1 is another minus. So 2 minus signs were, coming together. Say, and I went 8 and 4. The gradient is 2, guys, right? Not 4. The gradient is 2. A lot of people were saying 4, right? So I now know where the mistake was being made. So we have the gradient. Now, to find the equation of the line, there's an easy way to do it or a hard way. Remember, the equation of a straight line is y is equal to mx plus c, okay? We just found the gradient as 2, so we can replace the m with 2. Now, to find c, we could waste time by choosing one of the values and substituting it in, or isn't c the y-intercept? Isn't the y-intercept shown very, very clearly? It's not even you have to guess. Isn't it shown very, very clearly on the diagram? The y-intercept is 3. So you don't need to waste time to calculate it. Just replace it with 3. Right? So for part 3, right? Right. So for part 3, what's going to happen, right? They're asking about parallel lines. What do we know about parallel lines? Parallel lines always have the same what? Do you all remember? If 2 lines are parallel, they will have the same what? Rohan, correct. They will have the same gradient, okay? So if I have a line that is parallel to what they said, mm. Let me try to do it here. It's parallel to mn. So these 2 lines are parallel, but this one is going to what? Going through, sorry, the origin. So for the pink line, I know the gradient is what? 2. I don't even need to do any calculations for that. So the equation of that line is 2x, and its y-intercept would be 0 because it's going through the origin. Now you can write your answer like this, or you can leave out the 0. Obviously, if you leave out the 0 is understood. For those who got it wrong, you think you understand it now, right? All right, so there's a part C and a part D. All right. Good luck. To find a gradient, right? What you'll have to do on the sheet is kind of like, you'll have to draw a tangent at which point? 2, 4. So the tangent at 2, 4 is over here. So in the exam, you'll need to take a ruler and draw a line that just grazes that point, right? That is what a tangent is. And what they want you to do is find the gradient of that pink line. Remember what a tangent is, right? A tangent is a line that just grazes the curve. Now, to find the gradient of that pink line, you're going to have to, choose, you're going to have to get 2 points on that line. So we're going to have to estimate 2 points. Everyone could agree by looking at the graph. The first point here is 1, 0. And this point here looking like how much? 4, 10. Well, let me just agree on that, right? Let me just make sure I have it correct there. That the tangent to that line, those are the 2 points. Right? Using the formula for gradient, quickly find the gradient of that pink line, right? So everyone should be able to do this. And of course, I'm expecting once again, everyone to at least share an answer, right? So for those who didn't submit an answer, you're required to submit an answer. Let's see. Some people are saying the answer is 3, and some people are saying it's 3 1/3. Let's see who is correct. So we have x1, we have y1, x2, and y2. So it's y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Let's throw this inside here. 10 minus 0, and then 4 minus 1. Make sure my point's correct. Yeah, everything looks correct. Isn't that 10 divided by 3? That's 3 1/3, or 3.33. It's definitely not 3. All right. All right. So for the people who got flat 3, well, I assume that you saw your mistake now, right? Right. These questions are very rare in the exam, but they do come. That's where you actually physically draw a tangent to the line. Okay. All right, so let's move on. Hey, we have a little so the wizard takes you to the dungeon of the castle for whatever strange reason, and you see 3 prisoners. He says that if you free the correct one, the creature will take you to a magical stone that will teleport you home. Choose one. Who will it be? Will it be Bob? Will it be Jimmy? Will it be Screamer? Bob seems to be a popular choice, whatever Bob is supposed to be. Anybody else want to take a shot there? Whatever you choose, you have to stick with it. All right, so let's see which one is the correct one here. I'll get ready to update your sheets. So Bob was the correct choice. Jimmy apparently sliced you with his claws, and Screamer, well, he just flew away. All right, so update your scores, update your scores. All right. I know it's almost 8:30, right? I just have a little announcement before we go.